That is such a profound statement. And I think you know that I always emphasize continuous learning in my organization. And yet, I'm going to tie this in with one of the questions I have prepared. What is it about people's personalities that organizations are rife with dysfunction, right? Is that a function of people just being people, or is it a function of the organization not managing their way effectively around personality?
Wow, that is a loaded question. So part of it
That's
is
why I get the big bucks.
part of it is a function of people being people. But if you think about an organism, right? Any organism has, in order for the organism to thrive, the organism has to have an intention. The organism has to have an environment to thrive, and the organism has to have architecture. It's the reason companies have a noble cause. That's their intention. It's the reason you create culture, because the culture is the environment. And it's the reason you have processes and systems. The processes and systems are architecture. Notice I didn't say infrastructure, because infrastructure is almost too much for architecture. So go back to an organism, which I'm now saying is an organization, and all organizations are a human system. All families are a human system. So anytime you have organisms in a system, they will take on the DNA of the system. And if you bring in people to the system who don't fit the system, they will try tooth and nail to have the system fall into who they are, whether they're super aggressive or even passive. A passive person can try to change a culture by slowing things down, by thinking about only their own experience. An aggressive person can change a culture by causing a lot of conflict and dysfunction wherever they go, or they can reach out to attack before ever getting curious. So any organization is a human system, and the human system operates in the environment by whatever that human system gets away with. So it's yes, and you've got people who bring in all their familia issues. Every single human being that's ever had a parent or a first boss is transferring their caca relationships that they've had in the past on their new boss. Welcome to heaven. It's called transference. It used to only be labeled during sessions with a therapist, but it happens. If you're a passive little girl and your parents tell you to do this and do that, you're going to come to work and wait to be told. If you're an aggressive young man and nobody ever had to tell you to do anything, you're going to do the same thing at work. And to the degree that you're allowed to be you will be the places you stay if you do not have a growth mindset. If that passive little girl says, life isn't working for me, it's not happening the way I want it to, she has to choose not to be passive anymore. Then she can go work for an organization that is moving and shaking things. So the boss's job is to notice, take the pulse on culture. And I'm not talking about paying 20 grand and doing a survey. You don't have to do a survey. You can walk around and you can look and smell and taste everything that survey would give you. But if you do pay 20 grand for a survey, you better do something about what you get out of that survey. So
before we go into that, you're triggering multiple thoughts here, and I'm going to take you on a couple of hard left or hard right turns, and we'll come back to the survey. First, I noticed in the last year, it seems to me you've run at least one, if not more than one, workshop focused on women, women executive females. So, why is that a focus for you? I think it probably relates to at least to some extent to what you just said. Why don't you just tell us about your mission, your own mission to help female executives?
Yeah, so the programs that we run are called Ignite Your Power, and it's for women executives and women who aspire to be executives. So everybody in the room has a management level role depending on the level. So why we first started this is we had a couple years deeply entrenched with manufacturing companies. And what we noticed at the manufacturing organizations is less than 2 women in leadership. Like even in a room of 30 people, less than 2 women. And then that happened in tech. And then that happened in finance. And what these people in these trainings would say, because we do on-sites that's called Deep Alignment and Compelling Future. It's really where we create the foundation for their organizational culture. And what would come out of that is, what are some organizational strengths we're not leveraging the women in the organizations? So instead of them having women's leadership programs, the clients asked Keen Alignment to create it. So we did, and we just did our 5th one. We do 1 or 2 a year. And ultimately what we get, George, is a lot of women, no matter what level they're at, including executive board members of some of the largest consulting companies in the world. The women have this sense that is different than men, and that's that I have to wait and see. Now, if you watch Yellowstone, this is not the daughter from Yellowstone, because she is not that kind of person, but the majority of women in leadership are second guessing themselves. They're not taking the same risks that men are taking in business. They accept less for themselves than their counterparts would. There was a study done that if a man sees an ad for a job online or wherever, the man will apply for the job even if he only has 20% qualifications, and he'll figure he'll learn the rest. The woman needs 80% of the qualifications to apply for that job. So the whole mindset of I have to wait for permission, or I want to make sure it's right before I do it, that is what we are working on breaking through in these Ignite Power workshops. And then there's also the whole work-life navigation. How do I have kids and be a decent mom and have a career? Or how do I start my own business because I can't go where I want to go in these companies? But I have to be honest, the work that we're doing in Ignite Your Power is the same work that we're doing in Deep Alignment in co-ed. But when you're with the women, we're focused on women only for 2.5 days. And with Deep Alignment, we're focused on everybody on the executive team, which the majority to this day still are men.
I think, again, referring backwards to my organization at the time, I had about a 50% of the managers in my company were women. And I was very positive and I think proactive about assisting women to take on more responsibility, become more senior in the organization. And I was always very complimentary to the women that did that, and very happy to see it. So at least for me, I saw their potential and I saw their intelligence and I saw their initiative, and I wanted to encourage them. Now, to your point, though, there is either I'm not looking for an argument here. There's either a biological or a cultural bias to not be as assertive as men for whatever reason. So the men will typically just bombastically and loudly, like I'm talking right now, interject their thinking into a meeting. And there are not, someone like yourself, you're very confident, you're very self-assured. And so you get into that environment and you go toe to toe with any man that's in the room. Not all women are ready or willing to do that.